A friend of mine was working for a company, I think it was in Dubai, and someone complained that it took him 2 days to write 3 words. And he had to explain to them that the whole brand positioning sat behind these 3 words.
And is it hard to explain this for people that do not do the writing themselves?
The expectancy of a writer, especially in a commercial world, is just, well, you've got to do your research, you've got to... What happened to writing? Again, it's about quality. As I understood it, my job was here to write and make words good.
That's a very good definition of a job. Hi, Bryn.
Hello.
It's very exciting to have you on the show today.
My pleasure. Did you hear the thunder?
I did hear the thunder.
Is that a warning sign?
It might be.
My pleasure. Nice to chat to you.
A few days ago, I asked you to send me a short paragraph about who is Bryn.
Mm-hmm.
And I received the following. Bryn is a multi-disciplinary writer with over 2 decades of experience in creating advertising campaigns and marketing materials. He is an accomplished scriptwriter, published author, part-time illustrator, and PowerPoint enthusiast. His most recent role is an executive producer of a short film that is presently in post-production. Currently living in Cyprus and always looking for something to spark his imagination. This is Bryn.
And you read it very well.
Thank you. I was rehearsing a lot.
When you were reading it back, I was thinking, actually, that's not bad. I don't sound quite the hack that I am.
Well, thinking about writing in general, I know that you had a myriad of different kind of projects and different kind of jobs relating to writing.
Yeah.
Could you tell me at first which of the projects that you had was the most interesting one?
I suppose this, from a personal and a professional level anyway, the one that kind of opened a lot of avenues and introduced me to more things than anything was when I was published for a very strange novelty book about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, which was supposed to be a joke for a friend of mine. But he kind of liked it so much that I kind of, I just pimped it around to people. And eventually it was, I found a publisher that really wanted to do it. There wasn't much writing in it per se, but the idea of it and being able to do the illustration work as well and working with people within the publishing side of things was something that I'd never experienced. So the back and forth, and there was a little bit of excitement, and they made some suggestions in the editing process that I kind of really liked. And I ended up with a gift book that I could actually give to people that I'd made myself, which was kind of fun. And every now and again, when you saw this ridiculous thing in shops and stores around the world, it kind of made me smile a lot. It was just one of those things. It was a strange experience. Writing wise, it was an alphabet book, so there was only 26 words. But it was fun, and the whole process was just interesting and very personal as well, because as I say, I took it from a joke gift for someone right through to an end product that people could buy. Proud of it? My parents certainly aren't.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the novelty book? What inspired you to write it? And I believe the name of the novelty book is Swear Like Daddy?
Yes.
Baby's First Words.
Yes. So it was at a time when most of my friends were starting to have children. And all of them reached the same kind of moment where generally the father, sometimes the mother, they'd be unaware that the child's picking up on phrases and things that they were doing. And generally it was always offensive things. So the kid would be at school and just whatever their parents said would pop in their head. And they'd say it in front of teachers, and the teachers would be like, oh my word, this is, what's like this? And the title itself came from a friend of mine. It was a match, and she said, and her words were actually, yes, you can go and swear like daddy. So all these little pieces kind of came together. It kind of led to other stuff as well. I mean, as soon as you get one of them, you kind of like, oh, actually, well, we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. And I think the momentum that I had as a creative person at that time was really good. And I think that's one thing that you need. You have to keep the energy going. If you produce one thing, then the next project has to come off the back of it, or it has to lead to something. And once you take your foot off the pedal just a little bit, you kind of lose your way. So it's good to keep, pushing through things.
So it's like riding the wave, right?
Absolutely, that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, when you're having all these ideas, or or things are happening, that's generally the time that you should be enjoying it first and foremost, but continuing the output. I would say.
But at the same time, it is commonly said that every high has a low. So when you ride down the wave and you plateau, what happens then?
Well, interesting. That's where I am at the minute. I suppose I'm living in Cyprus at the minute, and when I changed islands 2 years ago, it was kind of in the middle of COVID, and I know that everybody said, "Hey, it's a great time for you to, to have the freedom and time to do whatever you want." But I'd arrived at a place that I didn't know. I wanted to explore the island. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't say that I was, it brought me down or anything. But my motivation to kind of produce things, whether it be script work, whether it be books, whether it be silly ideas, just to keep myself entertained, or even gifts for people. It sounds ridiculous, but over the years, I've done a lot of. I buy gifts for people, which are kind of can be entertaining, can be quite offensive, which is kind of where the project came from. I like making things for people, like showing my friendship in different ways. So often I might doodle pictures of people, or send them a little portrait, or things like that. And I kind of even stopped doing that. It just reached a point where nothing was kind of working for me. And as I say, it's starting to come back now. I'm definitely starting to feel myself more motivated than I have done in the last year or so. So fingers crossed.
Unfortunately, it does seem like motivation, just as creativity, is a little bit unpredictable. So you cannot predict it,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange. I mean, when I was working in advertising, or even any job that I was working in London, I did find seasonal effects would change everything. Not so much the sad effect, but I always found that kind of April through to July would be the the period that I would definitely be more energetic, and I didn't know why that was. I thought maybe it's the warmth. So when I moved to Malta, I thought, yeah, hot weather all the time. But what I actually found it was the light. There's something to do with light when it's bright, when it's vibrant. So even on cloudy days here, I do find that I can wake up in the morning and kind of, you know, have the energy to start a project. Whereas in London, yeah, sometimes it was very hard. The last few years in London were very, very hard to kind of motivate myself.
Let's speak about London a little bit then, because I know that some of your first jobs in advertising, I believe, were in London, if I am correct.
Yeah, I was in London for nearly 15 years. I started off in the ad industry working as an art director. Through friendship and luck, I ended up at one of the biggest agencies in England and possibly Europe at the time, a place called TBWA, under an amazing creative director called Trevor Beatty, and a second to none creative department just full of the best creative minds at the time. I mean, I got in kind of helping people out on small projects and things, and doing a bum jobs that no one else wanted to do. But eventually, kind of found myself in a main department, and I was there for 7 years. And I suddenly found myself working more and more on script work and writing radio commercials and little bits of TV that no one wanted to do. And I found that I had a real kind of pleasure from doing that. I think that's the reason I wanted to get into advertising in the first place. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, Jesus, you had a big boom on classic advertising that was humorous and playful and fun and, very visual. It was things that people kind of waited for to a certain degree. you'd almost look forward to the ad break just in case something came on or you saw something.
That is so uncommon.
Yeah, absolutely. Oddly, my cousin, he used to record like adverts. He used to sit there and he had like a VHS video recorder, and he used to record the ad breaks and then transfer the adverts that he liked onto another tape where he collected them. He never kind of got into advertising himself, but it just shows that at the time it was entertainment, and it was like these 30-second, 60-second comedy sketches, and I think that's why probably me and a majority of people my age got into it. It was like you saw these things and went, "Wow, this can be fun. This is you know this is something that I want to do. I just want to dick around and do these silly things." And it was like that. I did dick around and I did do some very silly things for a number of years. So yeah, I somewhat achieved that goal.
And I believe most of what you have done there was actually script writing for the commercials, but also other jobs as well. So, can you please tell me a little bit about the process of writing a script for a commercial? Because, as you said, a commercial most of the time is about 30 seconds. It's very short. And to provide the punch that is necessary to get the idea or the brand or something across, you have a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So, how do you use this time wisely?
I suppose it kind of depends on. First of all, it depends on the client. Personally, I haven't written one in 4 years because of the jobs that I'm doing. So things might have changed, and they were sporadic as well. But generally, the process would be that the account people would come in with a brief, various things broken down with a single-minded proposition, which would be one line on a piece of paper. There'd be a little bit of product description, who the audience was, things like that. You sit down, you discuss it, make sure that you understand what's being asked, and then you'd go away, bang your head for a week, trying to find some nugget that would be amazing, or something that would be silly, or something that would just be fun to make with a truth about the product, whether you found it by playing around with it or it's on the piece of paper itself. As I say, once you've got that, you just distill it into as you say, in 30 seconds. It's not a lot of time. If there's a lot to say, then it's even worse. So it's kind of the simplicity of the idea is kind of key, and the wording and everything. So it's tricky to describe. I mean, pretty much you just bang your head against a wall for a week, and at the end of it, you've got a script that either makes someone laugh, smile if it's good, or the majority of stuff that it's a nice production, but people forget it immediately. But you get a nice shoot in South America going to do it. I mean, the simplicity of the scripts is probably the key thing. You've got to set it up immediately. You've probably got a number of seconds to grab someone's attention. Then you've got to keep them for the length of the ad, and then sign off at the end with whatever the product is. And a lot of people always say that the failure of a lot of ads is that you never remember what the product is at the end. And there was a classic, beautiful shot commercial by Tony Kaye, and it was for a tire company with Andy Warhol. The Velvet Underground's Venus in Furs as the soundtrack, and it was just mind blowing to watch. And at the end of it, it's a tire company. I probably couldn't tell you which one it is, but I think most people say Pirelli, but I got a feeling it's Dunlop.
Even you don't know.
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I remember all the visual imagery, like so strong, so incredibly strong. I mean, it was a fat man in gold, covered in gold, laughing hysterically. There was a big guy in like black pointy rubber bodysuits and things like that. Yeah, it was one of those things. It's a stunning piece of award-winning work, but I don't know whether that's just a strength of the amount of visual imagery at the beginning that kind of makes you go, wow, it's so impactful that you don't remember what the thing is at the end.
Wow, that's an interesting point there, because it seems like if you put all your attention on, let's say, the visual aspect or the story of the ad, because, well, an ad is a short story, it takes you on a ride. And if you don't connect it well with the company or the product at the end, what people remember is the ad. And people just kind of forget who made it. What is the main problem here? What do you think? Let's say, even in this situation, why do you remember the ad, but you don't remember who was the creator of it?
I know what it's for me, it's still one of the greatest ads ever made, and that's probably the issue of being a creative person, especially in the industry. There is a lot of things that you see, and you're watching this, and this is phenomenal, and this is, it stirs your emotions as a creative person, but sometimes the average person isn't interested in the same shit as you, and that's one thing that I've certainly learned probably in the last 6 years, since I've moved around, since I've traveled a lot more and lived in different places, is that it's a very different world outside of the big cities. It's you don't get me wrong, you've still got some talented and incredible people, but the mindset's slightly different. It's kind of like, yeah, so who cares? Who gives a fuck about things? It's like here, the sunshine, the sea's beautiful. What do I care about a small video on my phone for? It doesn't come into your life in such a overbearing way, I suppose. It's a strange one. I thought everyone in the world was obsessed with phones and things and TV and movies, and when you actually get to it, it's like, no, no, not everyone is obsessed with Jean-Claude Van Damme films like me, you know. But all my friends in London, or my close friends in London, certainly, they could quote lines from like obscure fucking films, whereas the average person in the street anywhere doesn't even care what you're talking about.
Well, speaking about humor, I had a couple of conversations, and a couple of guests in the earlier podcasts have told me that writing humor is the most difficult style of writing. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, because things that I find funny, so many people don't. You know, it's a weird one because you can't judge how people are going to react to something ever in general, and the humor is probably the hardest one to judge completely. Um, I don't know why that is.
Is it because it's very subjective?
Well, I think everything's subjective, but I think 'cause it demands a strong emotional reaction in order to make someone laugh is incredibly hard. It's probably easy to make someone cry. To make them cry laughing, I mean, that's an incredible talent. I mean, there's guys that I know who are incredibly talented writers who wrote comedy, and the shame with it, they said, was when they started involving other people. So if they did stuff for themselves, there was always a joy. There was, they could try stuff out amongst themselves, and they always had the confidence of that. That they would understand each other. But when you open it to an audience, and I suppose that's the strength of anyone who is a comedian. I mean, fuck, I could never do it. I could never stand up in front of people and for 10 minutes and trying to make them laugh. I mean, you've got to be pretty tough. I think that's what it is. You've got to be able to take rejection, and I think that's, from a creative point of view, that's the worst thing. Being rejected for whatever it is, or people not seeing your idea or what you're trying to say, or just not liking what you do. I mean, most people will probably hate what I do, and it's an unfortunate part of producing things. I know for a fact my brother has no interest in anything that I do. He thinks it's all stupid. He's sort of, you know, I think he's got a couple of my illustrations, but then all my friends who are designers hate the stuff that I do. So it's kind of, you know, it's hard to become successful at anything and appease and appeal to everyone is you know, is an incredible thing. You know, everyone always moans about people who are, you know, what they got, you know, people who are selling out who have got mass appeal. Mass appeal is a fucking hard thing to do.
It seems that in general, an artist or a creative person should have the ability to dissociate himself from the work that he does. Of course, in the creative process, you have to put yourself into it. That's how good things come out of it. When you put your heart into it and your effort, your time, everything that you have. But once it is done, to be able to say, well, it's something that exists apart from me, and whatever other people think, it will not touch me.
I'd say that it's impossible to separate yourself from it. I think if you put so much passion into whatever it is, you can be offended. I mean, I wrote something for someone like a blog post for a company a while ago, and there was no brief, there was no nothing. It was just like, can you write about this? And I think I've done, you know, a moderately good job, you know. And then when people start, and you get this, you know, you have to be tough in like all commercial writing senses. You are going to get people who edit it, and you get people who change stuff. But the frustration comes in with like, yeah, but you didn't care at the beginning, and now you care it. Now you're adding this, and now you're changing this, and you want this in there now, and they start changing it, and it's hard not to want to tell them to fuck off. But they're paying you, so you have to kind of suck it up. But everyone always says that, you know, you don't worry, you can't take it personal, and it's like, but I'm kind of saying things in my own way, so it's hard not to take it personally. It is a personal thing that you've done. You've created even something that's bad, even if you know that it's bad or average or whatever it is. I mean, it's if someone still criticizes you, there's still a little bit of you, unless it's so far removed from what you want to do. There's still going to be a little element in there where you go, well, actually, that was quite a nice touch. I like doing that. That was okay. So for me, I still do look for the positives and the small wins in things. But I think to a certain degree that might be from where I came from as well. That when I started in advertising, I did the stuff that no one else wanted to do. Yeah, no one else wanted to touch the briefs that I did. So if I managed to get something that was a little bit positive in there, that someone said to me, "Oh, that was quite nice," that made that project good for me.
That's a good idea. It's actually, even if the opinion of other people, even if the reviews are not that good, a good way to combat that is to find something that you enjoyed about the project or about the piece that you really enjoy, and saying that, well, despite the negative feedback, this still wins over the negative feedback, that I enjoyed this so much. It seems to be a good counterbalance to the negativity that you get, because every creative person eventually, especially when he or she grows bigger, will get negative feedback. And it's something that probably everyone has to learn how to deal with.
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, the thing is that most of the time you agree with it. Most of the time, if someone's really experienced or someone knows what they're doing, or you value their opinion, when they say something, it might have that. Yeah, you're right. That's brilliant. I think, as you said, it's the negativity is when it becomes personal, or they don't understand the background to the project. So yeah, you say, this is the win that we've done. Oh my God, it was 6 months of hell and we've managed to create this. And this is the best job that we could do with the parameters, with everything we've created. And it's still, you know, it's still all right. You know, this is a major thing. And when people just go, oh, that's fucking shit, and they don't know what's been put into it, they don't know how many people have worked on it, that becomes a personal thing at that point, and probably more so personal when they go into that point.
Basically, it seems that some people are able to be very cynical about things that they don't really understand themselves and they haven't tried it out themselves. Just like when we think about modern arts, often I hear such a reaction, well, I can do that. It's nothing. It's just you throw paint at stuff and
Yeah.
that's it. But the fact is that you haven't done that. You say you could, but you have not. And this person has. You can have an opinion about it,
Yeah.
but you cannot say that I could do that until you actually have done that.
This is the interesting thing. It's kind of, I found it more so in probably recently in the last 10 years. And I don't know how it's going to happen with AI coming into play as well. But the actual value of writing and what, or communication, in fact, the value of it's kind of overlooked. And I think the reason for that is because, as you say, everyone thinks that they can write. And I think that's it. Don't get me wrong. Everyone can write. That's the best way of explaining it. Everyone can write, but it doesn't mean that everyone should write or can write in these circumstances. So it's the same with anyone can come up with an idea for an advert. Anyone can, but it's the guys who sit there in their offices that I witnessed who were just churning out good ad, good ad, good ad, good ad. It's keeping that quality at such a high level and consistency. And I think that's a problem with writing is that people go, oh, you just did a line. I can write a line. It's like, yeah, but do you realize how long it took? A friend of mine was working for a company, I think it was in Dubai, and someone complained that it took him 2 days to write 3 words. And he had to explain to them that the whole brand positioning sat behind these 3 words. Everything that going forward about this brand was behind those 3 words. They looked at his 3 words. So, I could do that in 5 minutes. It's like, yeah, but to get there, you have to go through this whole process and you have to refine and you have to try different things out. They didn't understand that, and I think that's my fear of everything. There's a lot of these writing companies who you'll see and they'll go, yeah, hey, we'll give you 5 cents a word, yeah, for writing stuff online. You're like, 5 cents a word. When you actually break it down, I mean, you were talking about Stephen King. I think his word count for the day was maybe 1,500 when he was most prolific. I don't want to do the maths now, but I think I've done it in the past. I mean, that's like $30, I think.
50 times 5. Yeah, it's $25.
Yeah.
That's not much.
Yeah.
That's not much at all.
And that's a prolific writer. My friend in a couple of years ago in Malta, she was writing for a guy. And the thing was that I think English was her 4th language. And she even said to me that, her writing wasn't great, but she was writing for this guy. And I was just like, well, how much does he want you to write? And she said 1,000 words an hour. And I was just like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, I get 12 euros per 1,000 words. And I've got to write 1,000 words an hour. And I was just like, that's insane.
That is crazy.
What are you writing? And she goes, he asked me to write about a subject and I research it the night before and I just bash it out. And it's just like, does he care? And she goes, he's never even questioned the spelling. She'd run it through a spell check, but he never came back with comments. And it just made me think, yeah, someone, whatever company that is, I mean, they clearly...
It seems like people don't really care about quality anymore. People just care about the quantity of how much of it you can get in other people's face or newsfeed. In this regard, these type of companies or these kind of creators just want to overpower other content by the quantity of their content. And it doesn't really matter if it's good quality, it just matters that there's a lot of it. So it seems like it's a tactic of how to get your name across.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know if I would try to take it out from my news feed and social media channels, or I would just try to get it out from there as quick as possible so that kind of content would never reach me. So it would actually ruin the reputation of the company, at least in my eyes.
Yeah.
What do you think about this battle between quality and quantity?
I think it depends what your own personal goal is. I mean, what I've probably written 3 or 4 emails today. It's like I write emails. Great, I've written some emails, but have I spent any time kind of writing anything creatively? If I was writing a book or if I was writing a script, I would definitely try to write every day something, whether it's just a character description or something that's going to lead to this, or whether it's a note. I think you have to have that discipline in order to reach, your end goal. But with regards to kind of publishing just stuff online, it's like, who's it for? What is the purpose of this? And that's one of the things that I've run into a lot of times when I've been working with a lot of companies who do online blogs and things. It's like, who's your audience? Who are you talking to? And they're like, our customers. It's like, are your customers reading it? How many people are reading this? And it's like, not many. It's like, well, why are we doing this? Or they'd say something, they'll come to you and go, oh, we're not writing anymore, we're doing videos. And you go, right, what do you want to say in the videos? And it's just like, oh, we'll do the same thing, but do them as a videos, because video is the new thing that we need to kind of do. This was a couple of years ago. And it was just like, okay, why? And they're just going, because everyone else, it was generally because everyone else is doing it. We have to do videos because everyone else is doing it. We have to write 1,500 words for a blog because everyone says that that's the right amount of characters that need to be used in order to get people's attention. So it becomes more about the metrics than it does about what the actual piece is. Is it going to be interesting to anyone? And if not, why the fuck are we writing it? A lot of the gaming companies that I've worked for, they're just pushing this stuff out there because they feel that they need to do it. And the reality is that they could do stuff a lot less. Why I had to write these PR articles and I was told that they had to be a certain length. And it's like, well, I can write that in 300-400 words. If we do a decent video that's just a demo of it, can't we just use that? Or I'd write I don't even know what to call it. It was like a release note thing, which would go to the departments of these online magazines, and they'd rewrite it anyway. So it's like, well, why don't we just put some bullet points on a piece of paper and there we go? Just give them that. And they're like, no, you have to write it. We have to write it because someone told us like 10 years ago that the way to do a PR article is this. And they don't think it through. And I don't know why it seems to be more online. I don't know why that's the case. Maybe it's because it's still new in people's minds. Maybe it's because everyone's blagging it.
But it's so weird at the same time because you so focus on the metrics, as you have said, about the form of how it should look like, that it doesn't really matter anymore what's inside of it. Because it seems that if you want to have a message that goes through, it has to be crisp, it has to be sharp, it has to be on point, it has to be clear, it has to be engaging. And if you can do it in 400 words, well, perfect. That's the deal. That's the idea, that those 400 words will just get it across, because that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to get it across. And if you expand those 400 words into 4,000 words, well, the idea, it will just disappear in the noise.
Yeah.
In the noise of your own text, basically.
Yeah.
And is it hard to explain this for people that do not do the writing themselves?
Yes. So I mean, generally, as I said earlier, I'm not sure they kind of care because they come from it from a different point of view, and it is still a little bit Wild West out there, I think. And people are trying things, and then I always remember, all the SEO managers just go, but yeah, Google have changed the whatever it is, and they've the policy on this, and we have to do it this way. Or they've changed it, and then you get two SEO guys who are arguing with each other. There was an interview by a famous ad guy who was speaking about this with a journalist at the Guardian, and they were talking about how both journalism and advertising, the quality has dropped significantly in the eyes of the audience. So people who are reading magazines and reading newspapers, and the same with people who watch adverts and the rest of it, they all feel that the quality of it's fallen off. And that totally coincides with people implementing kind of how much data and metrics are used. He's saying that in the old days, good old days, the editors just used to go find something interesting, and then we'll put it in the newspaper and people will read it because the interest is what draws.
Yeah, that's how it should go. Yeah, exactly.
Now
Cool.
they look at what everyone's looking at and they go, that's really good. So we'll write another article based on that. So you're copying
Hmm.
something that already kind of exists.
You're basically reproducing the trend that actually is ongoing. So you build on top until there is so much weight that it falls over on itself, and then you have to look for something else.
I think that's a money thing. I think a lot of it comes down to obviously people want to make profit. It's the same with films going through genres, like movies. You kind of go or TV series. You go, oh, well, they've done a successful show about that. We have to come up with one now.
Well, that's so interesting actually, because I can feel from what you're saying the tension between the creative types of people and the managerial types of people. The creatives are looking at ideas, they're looking at how to find something unique, to find something authentic, to express it in an interesting way so it catches attention.
Mm.
And the managerial types are looking at what works and they want more of that so it would work for them.
Yeah.
So it basically feels like there's a tension between these two people, these two groups of people working in the same company on the same project. So, how do you usually manage these tensions? Because, as you have said previously, there are writers, there are editors, there are the managerial types, there are the directors, there are different kind of stakeholders. Like this, there's this bunch of people who kind of want to create a good thing that later they could put out, but they have these varying interests and values and ideas and beliefs about how it should look at the end. So how do you settle all these different kind of opinions about what it should be and how it should look?
Um, I think a lot of the time it just comes down to the strongest will and the loudest voice.
Is it that simple?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, for me, if you're learning, and again, it's whatever your goals are. I mean, the last company that I was working for, um, the reason I kind of I stayed with them for as long as I did was, the work wasn't great, but um, they allowed me to. They allowed me. They made it possible for me to live here. So that for me was a benefit. The way that they behaved, the way that they acted towards their staff was, wasn't nice. When the company started getting a bit of negative press, it was amazing how many people started saying, "Oh, why don't you write a review? Why don't you say something negative?" And it's like, well, everyone knows what my issues are, but I got something positive from it. I think that's the way. I stayed there for a while. I got to meet some amazing people. Yeah, the work wasn't great. I now live on a different sunny island. So can I say to them, if I was reviewing them, I'm going to go say, don't go and work for this company because it's terrible. It's just like, hold on a minute. I can't. They've done me well to a certain degree. The reality is, if you don't like it, the majority of people can leave and find somewhere else.
And to have backup plans, basically.
Yeah, I think it's hard when people are trapped. I do know people I've spoken to over the years who because of their own personal circumstances, they can't leave a job they hate or a place that they hate, or they've got to pay a mortgage, or you tie yourself into that. I'm quite lucky because I don't have any dependables, I suppose. I'm quite free in the way that I live, so I can kind of come and go as I please. A lot of people don't have that, so when you get trapped within a job framework that you don't like, or a structure that you don't like, or an environment that's just toxic and poison, it's and again, going back to what we were saying about being in a demotivated environment, without question, I will say that the job that I was doing for a 9 to 5 stopped me from doing my own thing. Because, at the end of 9 hours of uh, sort of bad vibes and all the rest of it, the last thing you want to do is kind of sit in front of a computer again and write about your own stuff. I mean, it's kind of like, uh, it kind of paralyzes you when you do have that negativity. As I said, earlier, it's kind of like you get into these cycles as you know, when you're prolific, when you're writing, and the energy's good, and you've got to keep that momentum going. As soon as you lose that, or something stops that from happening, or you come back home in the evening and just want to sit in front of the sofa and put the telly on and eat badly, it's, as you say, it's going to keep going down until you pull yourself back up. It's a tricky one. It's definitely a tricky one.
Yesterday, we had an interesting conversation about how the copywriting industry has changed in terms of specializing. Because, as you said in the past, if you're a copywriter, you can land a job as a copywriter in many different kind of areas. But now, most of the companies are looking for someone very, very specific. So could you tell me a little bit more about that?
I mean, again, this is my own, observations and perspectives, but people have been saying this for a while. With regards to copywriting in particular, I think most high level kind of agencies or writing copywriters, design consultancies as well. And I think that would be the same for TV companies who look after scriptwriters. They will see what people have done and they'll respect their kind of judgment. But as more and more companies are kind of, I suppose, creating their own work and creating their own, content, whether it's mediocre or whatever, just stuff. They're creating stuff. I think content should be stuff rather than, because then, I think there's a difference between producing a video for a company that sits online to, content, and that often becomes an issue for me. I mean, as I say, I'm looking for roles as we speak, and I'll see writer and it's copywriter. It's like, have you done this, and this? It's like, no, I could do that, but I haven't. Can you show us it? Can you show us that you've done that? No, I can't, but I can do it. Do I want to do it? It's another question. But I can do that. But without you being able to show them exactly what they want, they won't even try you. And this started, as I say, I remember being in London, and we were doing a lot of freelancing, and there was one person who phoned me up about games, and it was like, "Have you worked for a gaming company?" It's like, "Yes, I work for Sony PlayStation, and I work for Xbox. I did some work for Xbox." And they went, "Have you worked for an actual games company?" In what sense? And what they wanted was that they wouldn't know whether I'd worked for a game producer. So even though they were gaming companies, they were talking about like a studio. Had I done work for a studio? And it's like, well, no. And they were like, okay, but what about mobile games? You've done big games and like, it's like, but game's a game. I've done it. Like, here's some entertaining writing. Here's some stuff that I've done for PlayStation. There's some stuff that I've done for Xbox. Surely you can see
the parallels.
And they just couldn't, and they were just like, "No, sorry, you haven't. We're looking for someone with like a lot of experience in mobile games." And it's like, okay, right. I can't argue with you. That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it, and so I'm not going to get that contract. And I think I told you about another friend of mine who said, "Have I ever done protein shakes?" And it's just like, no, it seems very niche. And they said, "No, this person's looking for someone who's already written for protein shakes." And this is when I think protein shakes had only just come out, or come out. They were increasing in their popularity, and you'd see the kind of silver tub on a pack shot on the London Underground, and on like a tube card or and it was just like that's too specific. but that's the way it's gone. And now you're getting, I mean, over here you're getting a lot of. Have you worked in fintech? Have you worked in, the finance department? Have you, we want someone who's got 10 years experience in whatever it is. And you think, Jesus, who would want 10 years of doing this shit? I mean, don't get me wrong. Um, it's forex, it's kind of like, it's a very intense industry, and it's a very particular industry. And it's, there's some companies who do create little bits of interesting work, but generally it's like very factual, it's very hard, it's very whatever. And the, what do you want to call it, the cycle of talent, or whatever you want to call it, is constantly moving around. So people don't stay anywhere for a long time, but it's stressful. I I know some nice people in it, but I also know some quite appalling companies as well in that industry. Um, Again, it's all about money. They don't particularly care about the quality of the product. So
They don't really care about the quality of the product, but they want 10 years of experience in a very specific niche.
yeah, yeah, and it's like, and it's quite, and the weird thing is, it's quite a new industry as well. So you kind of like, but who will have this in this, this experience? I mean, LinkedIn's one of the worst things that I've every job. So the way they pigeonhole everything is just crazy, and it depends on how people label things. So the last company that I worked for, I remember a copywriter came, who I hired, um, very talented copywriter. Everyone, people used to come up to him and go, "Oh, so you're the new content writer?" And he goes, "Oh, no, 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 I'm a copywriter." And they took that as that he was arrogant, that he was rude, that he was whatever. But he'd never heard that term before. That was the thing. He was just like, "Oh no, I'm a copywriter," and same way it was. I'm a copywriter. I write copy. "Oh, so you don't do content?" And he's just like, "Yeah, but I do other stuff as well." And they found him rude and arrogant. And it's the other company that I've been doing a lot of work with. I'd never heard the term of a technical writer before. That was all new to me. And there's this new, I think it's, with I wasn't aware of it until kind of 3 or 4 years ago.
So you have to know a lot of technical jargon in this kind of regard, because if you don't know the industry jargon, you might get into some trouble there.
Absolutely. But the thing is it's like, well, you need to speak to the developers, because they might be using a different program anyway. So your knowledge of technical writing doesn't necessarily need to be grounded in the technology, because that's why you've got developers, because the developers tell you how to express it. So I've managed teams of technical writers, but I might not per se understand the nuts and bolts. But you can't possibly understand all of that, because the developers are constantly changing it anyway. So it kind of, the expectancy of a writer, especially in a commercial world, is just, well, you've got to do your research. You've got to, what happened to writing? Again, it's about quality. It's like as I understood it, my job was here to write and make words good.
That's a very good definition of a job. Yes. Make words good.
Words good. And that's how good my writing is. I make words good. But I should always be supplied by experienced people and knowledgeable people how shit works. And I think that's fundamentally where it falls short, especially in some of these places, is that they just expect writers to do everything. Like I saw something the other day where it was like, we're looking for I think it was a copywriter, but they wanted them to understand SEO, and they wanted them to be basically, they wanted them to know the Adobe suite as well, so that they could produce all the work. Now, to me, that's not the job of a copywriter. That's the job of a designer and an art director to put that together. That's you can have. I mean, like me. I mean, say my background is art direction, so I could do a scribble for something like that.
Well, it's very interesting because it seems like certain companies are looking for someone very, very, very specific, whereas other companies, on the other hand, are looking for someone that is a team in one person.
Yes. Again, it's all about money. So it's like they're obviously going to save on salaries by getting one person to do everything.
Let's bring it to another subject that I really wish to talk about with you, and probably it's going to be the last topic of today. It's about AI and how it is changing the writing world in general, because with new technologies like ChatGPT and whatever else is going to come around the corner, it seems to have impacted copywriters and other type of writers, commercial writers, in even maybe technical writers. I don't know about that, but in a very, very, very strong way. So, what are your ideas about these new technologies entering the work world, and whether is it a danger for people of your profession?
There's no doubt it's going to change everything. I mean, it already has. I mean, the another company that I was working for, when they when they made a cull of people working for them, including writers, um, they suddenly went, "Oh, we've got rid of everyone, but we need someone to do the job." And I know for a fact that they paid for a ChatGPT account, and they basically started using it. Um, that was, I don't know how many writers or the work that was replaced, but it I think it serves a purpose. I think it definitely serves a purpose. As we said, if you want to keep the quality high, but you've got a load of stuff that just needs to be done. Let's say it follows a template, so you're just chucking it out there. You only need someone to manage it, and from a business point of view, that's great. From a creative point of view, it's kind of good because you don't have to do the mind-numbing work that sometimes you're asked to do. On, on the downside, all the jobs that I suppose that you could get when you reach my age start drying up. So the small jobs where you don't really need that much money, but someone will pay you to go in there and just no, can you just put something together like a PR article? I mean, if that can be done, with a few clicks, by someone who's managed, by the PR manager themselves. I mean, why the hell are they going to pay you to do it? So I think from a business point of view, it has positives. Um, I don't think it's quite there yet. I've played around with it a little bit. Um, for me, it sounds too. It doesn't sound unique in its voice. I think that with regards to replacing people completely, I think when you've got something that's truly expressive, um, whether it be a script or whether it be or an advert or whether it be even be an email to someone. Um, I think at the minute you can still tell. I think there's various people who will argue the toss on that, but generally the stuff that I've seen where people have gone out of this, it tends to be quite dry and intellectual. It doesn't quite seem to be human enough. And what do you expect? It's a robot. As you know, I did a teaching course recently, um, and with that, I had to write some intellectual kind of style assignments, and it's not what I write. It's not how I tend to write. It's a lot more considered. It's a lot more structured. Um, and it's certainly not as friendly. And the first assignment that I wrote, I was just smacked for this is far too friendly. You can't talk about the people like this. It has to be from an intellectual point of view. And it's just like, hey, okay, this is going to be a struggle. Um, but had I probably put it through ChatGPT, I got a feeling I probably would have got something quite good, or I would have got something that was acceptable as a first draft to kind of just tweak and give to these people. So I think as a way of solving problems, it's that. But I think if you're talking about something that's more expressive, I think you still need people. Even if it's you put a first draft in there, you get it out and you refine it. You still need people who are going to manage this stuff. You still so whether the job evolves, whether the job um, just sucks up all the bad content that's out there that no one's really being paid for anyway. The stuff that's being done for 5 cents and 5 cents a word is now being done by those people that really is anyone going to miss them?
Gotcha.
Um, there are people who are, unfortunately going to lose their income. But I think if you're flexible enough and you can adapt um, to these things, but then even then, a good writer will still be valued. Generally, I think talent will always be seen. There was something I think Elon Musk said something today that he said we don't really need AI. You don't. If you have faith in people and you have skilled people and skilled staff, and you care about what you're putting out there, whether it be whatever form of writing it is or whatever form of creative output it is, you still need, people are good. You'll get the best results from people if you guide them. I think you'll get the right product. It's not going to be done in 3 seconds as it is with ChatGPT. That's the reality. So again, it's a time. What's the pyramid? Time, money, quality. Is it? It's a very clever little chart, that, and it always does come back to that. Um, we'll see what the world wants, I guess, in a couple of years. Whether they do want to continue having nice stuff, or whether they're happy to just get it cheap and fast.
You have said when you reach my age as a writer, which is interesting because from people who are writing prose mainly, or that are writing novels, I have heard that the older you get as a writer, the better it is for you because your material ages like fine wine, and the readers sense that, and you get better at writing. And but this mainly comes from the novelist
Yes,
perspective.
yeah, and I mean personally, I agree. I think um, I I tend to believe that there's certain art forms that are questionable about whether um, whether age is a good thing or bad thing. Like music, for instance, is there's every everyone tends to be young who does music, who makes music, songwriters and the rest of it. Yes, you do get a few guys who go on to the later days, but the majority are young, youthful. They've got the energy, they've got the passion to tour. They just want to, it's this angst, and expressiveness, and it needs that energy. Um, I think novelists is, long form writing is a lot more considered. I think it takes a lot more experience to and it, to have that wisdom in order to kind of produce things like that. Screenplay writing, I'd say as well, but I think you have to be obsessive with that. I think you have to understand. You really have to live films in order to understand the art form, and I don't think that comes quick. I mean, it comes a lot sooner. I think being sat in front of the TV for so many years and not going outside as a kid was the thing that kind of married me to writing in that format. I could never write a book. I know that for a fact. I could maybe write teen fiction or something like that, something a little bit more, less cerebral. Um, but a proper novel, I think I'd have a real a real struggle with that.
Well, never say never. My girlfriend said that she would never date me, and here we are 5 years later.
Yeah, well, it's just but with regards to, I think, commercial writing as well. Again, I think it comes down to cost. I think there's a few companies that will keep people around with experience. Anyone with talent and experience to a certain degree will be kept. But when you get to the, let's say, the middle ground writers, the ones like me who are a bit more less known, um, I think what you find is that I think age does come into it. I think that there'll be a challenge, especially at smaller companies. If you go in there and you're slightly older, I was told this when I was applying for jobs in, I think, Manchester, I think it was, and Leeds in the north of England, and I said, well, why can't I come in and do this job? And the girl who worked there said, oh, no, you can't, because the people that you'll be working for are going to be younger than you. And I said, well, I ain't got a problem with that. And she said, no, but they'll have a problem with it because they'll think that you're trying to take over.
Mm,
And I was just like, but
gotcha.
I don't want to. This is why I kind of, I've never been a creative director at an agency. I've never set up my own agency. I like doing it, but I'm not driven and passionate about what I want to do, or doing this. There was a guy years ago who I knew who said that um, his dream was to become executive creative director to a worldwide global network. And I was just like, okay. And he said, well, what about you? And I said, no, dude. And at the time, it was, I think it was at the time that I just finished doing the novelty book, and I think I said, make another one of these. That's all that I can, that's all I want to do. This made people laugh. I want to make something else that makes people laugh. And I just don't have that desire to, what's the word?
Conquer?
Yeah, conquer and dominate people. I don't understand. I'm happy to, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to work in a team and I'm happy to advise people. I'm happy to guide people. I think that's very different from wanting to be, top of the pyramid and like the great fucking overlord who's going to be, sending thunderbolts down the people. That isn't me. I'm happy to be part of something. I'm happy to help people. I'm happy to share ideas and work on things with people. But yeah, I'm not gonna die for a piece of work that isn't my own. In the past, I would. Don't get me wrong. If I have a great idea, if I think something's great, I will fight for it. But what I've realized over working for a lot of companies is that I have a 3 strikes out rule. And if someone doesn't listen to me the first time, and then they don't listen to me the second time, and they certainly won't listen to me the third time, I'm giving up. There's no way that this person is ever going to bow down to it or accept whatever I'm doing. The same with the companies or people that I'm working for. If someone pisses me off enough, or someone does 3 major things that I think have affected or brought morale down, that's the time I start looking to leave. You give people an opportunity to kind of listen to you or listen to your experience or change. I generally don't feel that passionate. That sounds bad. If I feel passionately about something, it's because I genuinely feel that it's the right thing. I don't scream about small things. It's something that I kind of get a gut reaction to. And when I have had them in the past, they have generally been right. And that's what all right. And going back to kind of advice for people is, I think you need to go with your gut. I think you've got to feel out what you want to do as a writer. I think feel your strengths, enjoy it, and stick to it, and don't give up unless you're really bad.
Then you have to reconsider your career.
That's the one thing. If you're really bad, and that's the other thing. Listen to people. If someone tells you you're really bad, I think my friend said this the other day, and I it's something that I stick by, and maybe it should be the ending. The way of signing off is that if you're bad, we can help you get better. But if you're an arsehole, that's never going to change. And I kind of like the theory of that.
Thanks, Bryn, for sharing that. It was lovely to have you today on the conversation. And you are certainly not an asshole. So I was really, really loving to talk with you.
Dave, thank you. If I went off rambling, I hope that you can edit maybe 10 minutes that make sense and might be able to help people.
Signing off.
My man.
I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get to talk to each other pretty soon.
Yeah, I hope so, bud. You look after yourself.